If you're looking for something to do with your family this holiday season, consider checking out the new animal exhibits at the Brevard Zoo. If you're looking for a corporate citizen to help execute conservation and wildlife efforts, well, consider the zoo for that too. Thanks for joining us in the Florida Today newsroom. I'm Matt Reed, and this week we catch up with the executive at the center of all that activity, Zoo Director Keith Winsten. Winsten filled us in on meerkats, zebras, and a certain monitor lizard. We also talked about the concept of sustainability and what it means for nature in Brevard. Take a look. Keith, thanks so much for joining us here at the Florida Today studio. The zoo turns 20 years old today, or this year.
This year.
Correct?
We're a little past 20 now. We're trying to hide our age.
What's new?
Well, a lot. You know, 20 years ago, the zoo was founded by the community, and if you talk to, I still talk to people today who say, I loved building the zoo, but I never thought it would make it 20 years. And so this year's been sort of interesting. We decided to take stock of where we've been. We opened the meerkat exhibit in March, which has been wildly popular and even better than I thought. At one point, I sort of lost faith. I thought we were spending a lot of money on one species and just forgot how interactive they are, and they are constantly amusing.
What is a meerkat?
A meerkat is a little member of the mongoose family, but it's social, and everybody knows them because of mongoose, because of Meerkat Manor, and also because of Timon in Lion King. And they live in these groups. They're sort of dominated by the alpha female. She sort of runs the show, and she has older children who take care of younger children, and they're constantly in action looking for things, and they're constantly doing sentinel behavior, right? So one's always sitting up, looking at the sky, scanning for predators. And so people look at them and say, oh, they look so cute and adorable. Of course, they're mongooses. They will rip your face off if given a chance.
I asked if you could please bring one in, and you said, I think that might be...
not a good experience. And they're a little also like a soap opera. I think they have like a housewife series going on them because they're constantly who's in charge and who's testing the limits of the alpha female's reign. And we had some males get kicked out of the group because they weren't behaving. And
oh no, what happened?
Well, we've sent them off to another zoo to form their own little housewife show.
Oh really? So they are really that,
they're out.
Exiled.
They're out. They're not coming back in. They don't make it.
Mm.
They don't make it. So, but what was interesting about 20 years is we also started this year, we did something really interesting, I think, and that is we did a series of listening sessions that we did with the community. And I just looked over 250 people from the education segment, from conservation, from tourism, our members, our donors, our volunteers, teenagers. We did a series of questions with all of them, and we asked, like, where should the zoo go in the next 20 years? And we're going to be taking all of that feedback and doing a board retreat in January and trying to figure out, okay, so what are our goals for the next 20 years? What do we want to accomplish in the world?
What were some of the, were there any that just came out a lot from that?
Sure.
Just raw feedback?
A lot came out. I mean, our conservation efforts and saving the Indian River Lagoon and saving sea turtles came up a lot.
Okay.
Things like, all species of sea turtles off the endangered species list. Indian River Lagoon gets a clean bill of health. Brevard County is the best place to raise children in nature in the state. We had some fun ones with attendance.
Okay.
Brevard Zoo surpasses Orlando theme park attendance. That was a little scary.
People have high expectations.
High
for
expectations.
The zoo here. Clean up the river, save the sea turtles, pass the theme parks.
Yeah,
wow.
And some of those, the theme park one was great to hear, but I don't think we aspire to that. So those were a lot of the themes that got repeated. Connecting people with nature, being self-sustainable with the attendance issues. And then the conservation efforts that we've put out there have really just gotten hold.
We'll talk about those today. I think some of those are really interesting. Any special holiday things? I know people are looking at this time of year. They've got people coming in from out of town. They want to go maybe visit the zoo.
We have what we call holiday happenings happening right now through when school gets back in session after the holidays. The days leading up to Christmas, there's usually a rumor that Santa Claus will make an appearance some of those days. We do a variety of different winter camps that happen if you're looking for a place to have your child have a great time over the holidays. And a lot of people, it's a lot of childcare to provide if you're working. So we offer those camps. And also right now, construction started on our Africa extension. We're extending the boardwalk so we can add zebras next year. And so that was really a little nerve-wracking for us because when you start making major changes to exhibits, last week, we had to keep the giraffe and rhinos inside as we placed the poles. And now they're out again as we're working. We did that one. And of course, I was really nervous that you come back out and they see all this work in their exhibit, and a lot of animals' hoofstock gets skittish, and they wouldn't come out. We thought they maybe, what's this? Really, no problems. And especially Rafiki, who's our big male giraffe, he's like another foreman on the crew now. We have to keep him away from the nail guns because he's ready to get to work. So the fun thing is if people come right now, you can see the deck going up. It's going up so fast. And so I think the guests are actually enjoying watching that process as well. Certainly kids love watching construction.
That giraffe exhibit is one of my most favorite things to do. You're up there on that second level, right around head height for the giraffes, and they come in there with their big crazy purple tongues. And
this will take you even higher.
Really?
Yeah. We're going out, and we're gonna add zebras next year. So the zebra sort of housing will be underneath the deck. But we had to get it over where the rhinos cross. So we had to put it up at a slope, and it ends a couple feet higher than the current deck. So you'll really have this panoramic view, better views of giraffe, the zebra and rhinos. And we've had a lemur island out there for years, but it was too far away to ever see. So you'll get close to lemurs, and people love lemurs. Going back to those movies, another characters everybody loves.
Okay, legit question regarding animals and whether they get along. Zebras, giraffes, rhinos. You can put them all in a big room while you're building a deck, and it's
well,
okay?
They're all in their different rooms. I mean, they have their bedrooms at night, so they're not all together. The zebras and the giraffe are never mixing. Everybody has personalities, and the rhinos and giraffe never mix. But the zebra and the rhinos are going to get along, and actually the one who I'm worried about are the rhinos, because zebras are incredibly aggressive animals.
Really?
People look at them and go, and they're a really scary aggressive animal. Fabulous animal. These are Brevard zebras we're getting. They're a desert zebra that's found in northern Kenya. Beautiful, the biggest zebra. Many people consider the most attractive zebra. But they're desert, they're tough, and we're just getting 2 mares. We're not getting any stallions because they're particularly tough. And so there'll be a little detente where they work out with the rhinos, who have like 3,000 pounds on them or something. But they'll work out a system, sort of who's in charge. But they'll work it out. I'm not too worried about it, but what happens is we introduce animals very carefully so they get to know each other first through bars or other barriers before they're together.
I never would have guessed that anything would mess with a rhino.
Yeah. Well,
rhinos and hippos, I just figured were the tanks of the animal world.
Yeah, hippos are pretty tough. Rhinos are sort of mellow. They're white rhinos. They're pretty good-natured animals. So.
And they're all herbivores, right?
They're all herbivores. They're not going to eat each other.
Cold weather. I'm wearing a sweater this week. It's chilly. We've got a front coming through. How do the animals do?
It's not, we're really so blessed here. One of my mentors years ago said the key to looking good is to run a southern zoo because the animals are happy. They're out all year round. They're not locked up for long periods. The plants, you put a fence up and in Florida, 3 minutes later the plants have grown over it. We're set up for cold weather in that we have ample electrical outlets and we can put heat lamps on things, but none of this is particularly challenging to us right now. As we build new exhibits, we build the heating options into them. So for example, we opened meerkats this year. There are 2 African rock pythons in there, and there's these sort of neat crates in the front that have glass in them, and sometimes you see the pythons in there. Those have heated floors. So, we give the pythons the option when they're cold, they can come in and get heated. That's how we do it with the small primates, things like that. This isn't too bad right now. Cold's one of the least of our challenges.
Wait, you have rock pythons in the same area as the meerkats?
Well, they're different exhibits, but they're close.
Oh, see, I was thinking that'd be interesting.
Yeah, that's a one-time exhibit.
Right, they're mongoose, right? So it could be
the meerkats would fight. They would fight them off, and quite frankly, I'm not sure the rock pythons would really bother with such a skinny little meal, but they would not be happy. That's for sure.
What do you feed a rock python?
Oh, bigger rodents than that. Yeah, bigger things than that.
You recently had an animal pass away.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, Ozzy was really one of the most beloved animals at the zoo. He was an otter, and we've had 2 sort of. One of the interesting things of turning 20 is your animals are getting older, right? So we're reaching a phase now where we have a lot of geriatric animals. They've been with us for a long time, and we're committed to lifelong care.
Those otters are cool.
Oh, really cool. And the female is doing okay. We didn't really know how long she'd go once she lost the male, and she had some surgery after Ozzy and recovered. But that's part of life too at the zoo. We provide what we call lifelong care. A lot of times animals get older and we retire them. We find them a space where they're off exhibit. If that's better for them, we'll give them that option. But we keep, we take good care of them. And the same decisions you'd make with a family pet. At some point you might decide the quality of life isn't there for them. And so, we have a new veterinary hospital. We opened the Harris Corporation Animal Care Center in 2012, and it really is state of the art. It's really the envy of lots of other zoos, so we provide extraordinary care. But those decisions come. They're always difficult, but you provide the animal with a good life and a long life, and a lot of times animals in zoos live longer than they do in the wild, and we just try to provide the best care we can for them until the end.
You had a favorite, I know the last time we talked about, and it seemed so improbable that there was this monitor lizard that was in the petting zoo area?
Yeah, Ollie, we were talking about that. I would say that of all the losses there, Ollie really affected me the worst. Ollie, and lots of families know Ollie. Ollie was this big black-throated monitor who just did so well with people and other animals. He was just the most mellow lizard. And I have this fantastic photo of this little girl sort of straddling Ollie's back, bent over with her head resting on his head. And there was a bad case in another zoo years ago where a celebrity went in and got bitten on the foot by a Komodo dragon.
I think I remember this.
I can't remember who the celebrity was. Someone pretty famous. But we had to go through a lot of moments with Ollie before we had that level of trust. But we did. And the interesting thing is, before he passed, and he passed away unexpectedly, he had a spinal degeneration issue that we did all sorts of therapies.
In the Harris Hospital.
Yeah, never could recover. Took him out into the community to some of our partners out there have even more specialized equipment. And in the end, it turned out it was a genetic issue. His spine was deteriorating. But before he passed, we ended up getting 2 young black-throated monitors. And we thought, let's raise them up and see if we can recreate Ollie. And for a long time, it was really touch and go. I have scratches from them from earlier. But now they're getting bigger. They're starting to mellow. So we think it's sort of this species. And it's a great, kids get it so much faster than adults do. They go into the petting zoo in the summer. Ollie would take baths in like a kiddie pool with the alpacas. And it just was this fabulous thing. With all reptiles and all contexts, you're always monitoring for any disease or anything. But we're set up to do that. So we do a really good job.
So there's research going on in some ways. You're watching how these animals behave. Do you ever write it up or make speeches or presentations or anything like that?
Yes and no. We really are about applied conservation.
Okay.
So there are zoos that have PhDs on staff and they specialize in sort of the behavioral work and doing sort of more of pure research. Our focuses are really in the field and applied conservation. So we don't publish a lot, and we have some partners in the community. Different research universities we work with, they publish all the time. That's part of what they do. We're really about what sort of impact we can make on the ground.
Let's talk about that conservation a little bit. I know that the zoo has been kind of the point agency on a couple of Indian River types of activities. One of them is this oyster project.
Yeah,
Tell me about that.
I will. I was talking to a group the other day, and I actually sort of painted a picture. If you had asked, I got there 10 years ago, and when we were, 10 years ago, we were trying to figure out what our conservation role should be. Should it be focusing on breeding certain groups of animals that were good at breeding? Should it be, supporting projects in Africa or South America? And we continue to do those things, but with us, for us, it really started with a scrub jay. And that was, both the Federal Fish and Wildlife and the Fish and Wildlife Commission in Florida came to us and said, there are all these properties where scrub jays have basically been mitigated for. The owner has paid money to buy land in a scrub jay bank, but the scrub jays don't leave. They don't know that their property is going to be developed.
Oh, I see.
Right? They stay there. And
you hope that a scrub jay might show up on this other property sometime.
Never. They're really poor flyers. That's why they have this very specific need. And so can you help basically master a translocation and figure out a way to move them? And what's so interesting is the earlier attempts had been, what happens with scrub jays, they're like meerkats. You have mom and dad, and then you have helpers who are older kids, and then you have younger kids. And some of the early attempts, people would take the helpers and move the helpers into the new site, but they wouldn't stick around. And we know from our experience in the zoo world, working with gold lion tamarins in South America or with red wolves, that what you have to do is move the whole family group. And so it's fairly easy to acclimate scrub jays. They like people. We started moving families of scrub jays to some of these much better habitats for them. And when you move the whole family, and we would do a medical checkup on them on the way, they stay and they have chicks and they thrive. So we started with the realization that the best impact we could have was using the skills we already had, taking care of animals, veterinary, working with the community, and applying it to problems mostly here in Florida. And so that's where we put a lot of our conservation efforts. And we work with PhDs elsewhere, but we're more like the technicians and the communicators and the people, again, the boots on the ground. And so if you were to go today and start in the lagoon, you could start with our oyster restoration program, and then once you got on the barrier island, there's scrub jays that we move, and we do mangrove restorations. And then once you got to the beaches, we work with beach mice, which are these great little mice that live in the dunes. And if you're lucky enough to live on the beach, they're your best friends. Because
really? Why?
They spend all day planting sea oats in the ground and burying them like a squirrel and forgetting where they go. And those sea oats grow and they anchor your dune.
Yeah.
So we say these are the keepers. These are the mice that anchor the dune that saves your house in the storm. And then all the way through the ocean where we opened a sea turtle hospital. But the oyster piece, we sort of feel like we were ready. We've been working in Volusia County for years, doing a restoration effort up there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That with the University of Central Florida, that actually completes this year. We've actually completed the mission, like 40,000 volunteers. I'm trying to remember how many reefs. And
this is in Volusia County.
Basically, all of the areas that had been identified as dying reefs have now been restored. And so the timing was perfect because we needed to bring that knowledge and experience here. And as everybody knows what's going on in the lagoon, we had a series of weather events. And essentially what happens when you mess with habitats, and this is everywhere in the world, is you reduce what we call their resilience, their ability to roll with the punches. And one of the pieces I try to communicate to everybody is there is no wild anymore, as sad as it sounds. We're responsible for impacting things everywhere.
Right.
And so we have to be responsible stewards. And that doesn't end. It's not like you fix it once. So we're going to be stewards of the lagoon forever. And I think many people here gladly accept that role. We love the lagoon. It's our quality of life. And so we had to restore some of the pieces. And we partnered with the county, and they've come up with a really nice sort of four-pronged plan, which is reduce the bad stuff going into the lagoon, restore the natural ecosystem services, remove the muck, and keep doing the research. And we touched three of those, but the heart of what we really do is restore these natural systems. And we started an oyster gardening program, and we've trained like 800 people.
I've met a couple of them. It sounds neat.
It's a lot of work, and it's really rewarding, and we've had such support. I mean, it's not easy. You have to come and build this thing. That's the easiest part. And then you got to hang it off your dock, and you got to clean it off every week, and you have to collect data for us. But it's done a few really interesting things. With 800 plus of them, it's like we had this beautiful coverage of the whole lagoon, and we could test in real time where the oysters survived, right? So it's this, how do you know if an oyster survived? Well, you put it off a dock and see if it survives.
Right.
There's no simpler test.
But are they seeding and growing and building
so
little
dangling colonies spat
of
on
oysters?
shells, so these little tiny things on shells, and they put them in a basket off their docks. And they're growing, and they're actually doing well almost everywhere.
Really?
We found that canals that did not get a lot of flow were not great places. Too much spoiling, too much fouling, other stuff would start to grow. But up and down the lagoon, tremendous results, and now people are bringing the oysters back to us, and we're starting to set up these larger reefs. We've had about 60,000 oysters have come back so far, and each of these larger reefs, we're going to test and see really what is the cheapest way to build a large functioning reef, because every oyster is not costing you a thing, but it's filtering 50 gallons a day. So the ability to turn over water and filter out the sediment that blocks the light down to the seagrass. We're also working to actually measure how much nitrogen, that's what runs off our lawns, right? How much nitrogen is being removed by the oysters, because early work in Chesapeake has shown this might be the cheapest, most efficient way to take nitrogen out of the water. Nitrogen is really the enemy. That's where you have to hit standards. And it could turn out oysters do it for less than anything else. And so we're at that next phase. I do have to tell you stories, though, about people and their oysters, because they love them. We've had people pull out pictures out of their wallet like their children.
Taking selfies with their oysters?
Taking selfies with their oysters. We had people who had baby showers when they picked up their baby oysters. They had friends over and they had baby showers. And then we had a gentleman who, we got the oysters, and the spat on shell, they can spat on shell. They can stay out of the water for a while without drying up. But this gentleman had brought a cooler, and his wife went to put the cooler in the back of the car, and he said, no, no, no. And he took the cooler and he strapped it in his lap. And we thought that is commitment. So, people want to make a difference in the lagoon, and they know this is real. And it's, again, not easy. And we've had people who said, okay, I've done my bit, and we appreciate that, but we'll keep growing. We figured out there's only about 1,500 homeowners who really abut the lagoon in Brevard
Is that all?
County. Yeah, well, we tried to look non-canal. That's the number we came up looking at the real estate. So someone might call up and say you're wrong, you missed this, but we think that's the number, and about half of them have stepped up to do this, which is remarkable.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I've known for some time that there is this kind of extraordinary coalition of different types of interest groups that really have come together and said, no, we really want to make this lagoon better. Conservative, liberal, fishing people, environmentalists, all that kind of stuff. And to me, the oyster project was the one that was just the everyday people and homeowners living on canals wanting to get involved in some way. And I didn't know that turning in the oysters was part of the process. Or did they just go, this thing's gotten so big I can't handle it anymore?
A lot of them, we've done a lot. They've been washing these things out every week. And yeah, the point was to bring them back. The first point was to see where they would grow. So we have this incredible living database. We know where oysters will grow. At least, remember, we started last January. So we have about a year of data that says they will grow here, and we feel really good about that. Now we're basically seeding our own oysters. And I want to go back to what you just said a little bit. I like to think that the lagoon is an and problem. And often people try to frame things politically as an or problem. Should I do this or this? Because I can't. And the lagoon is an and problem. We have to reduce the runoff. We have to restore the natural systems. And we have to remove the muck. And we have to do research. We have to do all those things simultaneously, probably forever in some way or another. And that's where that coalition has come in. So, for example, Florida Tech has taken a lead in some of the muck removal pieces. Marine Resources Council is is out there in terms of making sure it becomes something that's always politically out there.
Right.
Right. So everyone has served a different role in this process. We've been the oyster people. That's been our defining piece. And so I think that's the key. And then the county has done really a great job. This county turned on a dime on this issue. It was, when we had a meeting last October in the Lagoon House.
Right, I was there.
Resource Council, right? 5 county commissioners voted to give money for oysters. Not long after that, they put in the fertilizer ban over the summer.
Right.
And I think every municipality in Brevard County has followed. I mean, the community recognized the problem, turned on a dime. I think politics left it. And I hope that will continue. This is not a political issue. It's a quality of life. It's the dollars that come out of billions of dollars come out of the lagoon for the economy. Plus, we all want to play in the lagoon. So,
well, you wrote a column for Florida Today recently on sustainability, right directly at this issue. Speaking of either or and or kind of questions, you wrote that nature isn't a person or entity that has feelings. The real choice we often face is that what kind of nature do we want as people? Do we want a lagoon full of manatees, dolphins, redfish, and trout, or a lagoon with only jellyfish, catfish, and toxic algae blooms? Nature is happy with either, and over time, new species of organisms will undoubtedly evolve in the lagoon, no matter what condition we leave it in. That's kind of a heavy thought. I mean,
well, and I tell people that conservation is the ultimate selfish, interest. I'm interested in preserving this world because I like it this way. Right. And Julia Roberts has stolen my thunder a little bit. I don't know if you've seen these great PSAs where she's the voice of Mother Nature.
No, I haven't seen those.
I'm Mother Nature. I've been here for millions of years. I'll be here for millions of years. I don't care. You want to mess with me? You'll get the nature you want. But I'm going to keep doing what I do. You don't really matter to me. And I think that's what we forget. It's a selfish avocation. To decide how we want to manage nature. We do have to manage it because at this point we've disrupted so many systems. I mean, the channel of Port Canaveral is a perfect example. It stopped that flow of sand coming down from the Cape. So either we manage it and add sand south of that, or the sand will erode away. But if we chose, it's a choice you make either way. And that's how I think. I mean, I personally don't want to think of my grandchildren growing up in a world without tigers in the wild, but that's a reality if we don't take steps. I love that my grandchildren have a better chance of seeing right whales now and sea turtles now than they did 20 years ago. So we can positively affect it, but I hate when it's framed as people or nature, because all that really matters is what kind of nature for people. That's how we judge it. Nature doesn't care.
Yeah, exactly. I think that I think maybe it starts with us watching Bambi or shows that we give these kind of human qualities to nature, and so we sympathize with it initially. That's our first thing that we learn, but really it's just much colder kind of.
Yeah, I don't mean, listen, I'm obviously a great lover of nature, but nature is a machine that over billions of years evolves new species, fills every niche that's empty. We talked about earlier before we got on the show, this perfect example of Cuban tree frogs, this invasive tree frog. And the question is, when you have animals from the tropics and they come to what were temperate zones, they outcompete the locals. But it's not the other way around. This great study showed when you have animals from North America and Europe and you introduce them to India or South America, they don't make it. And the answer sort of, the question was why? And the answer seems to be they come from older ecosystems that have been around for a longer time. It's been like a more competitive battle there. And those species that have evolved there are tougher. They're the survivors. And they come here and they find easy pickings because our species haven't been around a long. They're not as finely evolved. Nature's, survival of the fittest is the rule out there, and it's constantly fine-tuning everything that takes place.
We've just got 1 minute left. How's the zoo performing? Healthy? Good shape?
Healthy, very healthy. We've had another good year. One of the things that's really exciting for us, and we encourage people out there, is a lot of people don't really realize, we're a 501c3 charity. And that's starting to change. We've partnered with the Community Foundation for Brevard. So people love our work, and we do so many things. We touch every school child, we touch the environment, and most of all, we're like the fun, family, healthy place. You come and visit. But people don't realize that we can't live on love alone. So we have launched some really great programs this year, Jaguar Society and Women of the Wild, where people are coming behind us to support us and make sure this work takes place. And so that's exciting for me in the future. We've really turned the corner on that. And we're seeing these events where the community comes out and says, we love what you do, we want to keep you going. We appreciate that we're not governmental, we make it on our own. So
fantastic. Keith Winsten, thank you so much for joining us here today. Sounds like some good programs over the holidays.
Thank you.
Well, that's our show for this week. Hope you liked our new high-def format and great editing by my new producer, Rob Landers. Tell me what you thought of our guest, Keith Winsten, or anything you read in Florida Today. Just send an email to mreed@floridatoday.com. We'll see you here every Wednesday on WEFS and FloridaToday.com.